One of the most important and critical constructions in Latin is what we call indirect statement. The Latin term for this is oratio obliqua, which means indirect speech. And sometimes instead of indirect statement, you'll hear people use the term indirect discourse. So all of those, indirect statement, oratio obliqua, and indirect discourse, are terms for one of the most important constructions that Latin uses. And you'll see this all the time, so it's crucial to become really familiar and comfortable with indirect statement. It's a bit tricky, but here we go. This sentence, the girl loves the dog, is what we call a direct statement. It's just a fact out there, the girl loves the dog. And here it is in Latin, puella canem amat. As you would expect, puella is in the nominative case because it's the subject of this sentence. Canem is in the accusative case because it's the direct object, and amat is conjugated to agree with its third person singular subject. So far, so good. But all that's going to get shuffled up as soon as we add a little simple extra element to the sentence, which down here you'll see is he says. As soon as you introduce the idea of somebody saying or telling or thinking about something else, you have the potential to enter indirect statement, or as I like to call it, accusative infinitive land. Why do I call indirect statement accusative infinitive land? Well, because what happens in indirect statement is first you have a verb introducing the indirect statement. In this case, he says, dicit, he says. And then also really important in English, indirect statement almost always is introduced with, in English, the word that. I think that you should go to the store today. I heard that Susie is really excited about the movie. I believe that everybody can be whatever they want when they grow up. All those sentences are something that I'm thinking, saying, or believing, and then they have the phrase that. And then if you were in Latin, everything that would come after the subject and the verb would be in accusative infinitive construction, because the hallmark of indirect discourse is that the subject of the sentence that's being discoursed indirectly is going to be in the accusative case. So here, puella becomes puellam after the word dicit, he said. He said, add that in your English translation. There's no that in Latin. But he said that the girl, and now puellam, even though it's accusative, is the subject of our main verb here. The girl loves, and the verb becomes an infinitive. So it doesn't agree with the subject in person or number anymore. He says that the girl loves the dog. And again, the verb amare doesn't agree with the subject anymore, even though this is the subject. So I could get rid of puellam, I could change it. Let's say the girls love the dog. And that would still be correct. He says that the girls love the dog. But up here, if I wanted to make this plural, I could make it plural, and then I'd have to also change the ending of amat to amant. Not so in indirect discourse. In indirect discourse, you have an accusative subject and an infinitive verb. And the other problem is, you might have noticed, oh my goodness, we have two accusatives here. So how do we know which one is the subject and which one is the direct object? Technically, you can't really know for sure in this case because Latin doesn't have word order the way we do. But sometimes word order gives clues, and a lot of times in indirect discourse, a lot of times, but not always, the accusative object will be closer to the verb than the subject, like I have here. So that's kind of like a good guideline to go by. Coming up, indirect statement part 2.